everyone and welcome to Low Rent Rick Scale Modelling and my build of the 172 scale Fairey Swordfish Mark 1. This is one of the kits from the £100 Aircraft Mystery Bundle. I'll link that in the description below. And before we get going, please do consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. Leave me any likes, any comments. They really push the videos out there. Ways to support the channel are all listed in the description. So let's get on with the build. I'm going to approach this build sort of step by step by following the instructions pretty closely. I don't usually do that. I usually build out of order, but I've decided to go for the step by step on this one. Now, I made some big mistakes on this build through lack of concentration and a bit of overconfidence and a bit of cockiness. I'll point out those mistakes. Although they're quite easy to do, if I'd have been concentrating, I wouldn't have made them. But I managed to rectify them and get away with it, really. So here we go. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the cockpit. These 172 scale kits are really good. They're a little bit better than the smaller scale sort of the starter gift set. They're a little bit more complex with more moving parts. So that's the reason for me doing it step by step, to make sure I don't miss anything. The cockpit assembly looks quite large, so I'm guessing this is going to be a reasonably large build, even though it's in 172 scale. And I'm going to be a little bit liberal with the painting and with the colours. I've chosen as the base scheme, I'm going to go for the black scheme, because I think it looks so cool, and I don't often get the chance to paint models in black. In terms of the fit, so far so good. I have noticed on some of the sprues there is a bit of flash, nothing that we can't handle though, to be expected. I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I believe this might be an old Matchbox kit. If anybody out there knows that if it is or not, please let me know in the comments. Now, so much of this kit is going to be painted in black, so I'm going to start by giving everything a light coating. Now, if anybody watches my channel or watching my builds, I don't tend to use primer, and it's not because I'm against it in any way. It's just that I don't really find it necessary, and I'm going to do quite a bit of sanding later on. In the stage where it's had its first coat, it does look a bit rough, but this lets me see how the model is going to come together. It does bring out any of the imperfections. It shows me any of the bits that need sanding back or don't look quite right, and it gives a nice base coat. It's almost like putting on a primer in many ways, but I do like to get that one thin coat down before I glue everything together. And a lot of the models, they tend to go together so well that it's not really a waste of time. Just in this case, I do know that later on I've got quite a bit of sanding to do, but it's no problem once the thing's together just to start coating that back up again and bringing that colour back together. Moving on to assembling the fuselage around the cockpit. The cockpit piece is really quite large. When it does go together, it goes together quite well. The fit is quite tight, but nothing that should be a problem. So when it does go together, I'm going to end up gluing the bottom section first and clamping, and then when that glue is dry, putting the top section together and clamping that down too, just to apply a bit of pressure, give the cement a little bit of time to do its job. Also, the two window pieces here need to go in before the main construction. I'm just going to use contactor. I've never really had a problem with it fogging up unless you get it actually directly on the surface. I know some people do have a little bit of an issue with it. So there we go, just getting it all clamped up, getting it fit together. The whole build on these models tends to go awry at this point. If you don't get the cockpit and the fuselage correct, then everything else is going to be out of line. But with a bit of clamping and a bit of sanding, the fuselage went together really well. It's the wings that are going to be the problem. Obviously, the Fairey Swordfish is a biplane. This will only be, I think, the second biplane I've done after the Gloucester Gladiator that I did some while back. That was a really enjoyable build, but I understand there are some fit problems, and you need about a second or third hand to get some of the struts to go in together. So that's the bit that will really make or break this model. The tail section is where I encountered the first real problems with this kit. First of all, the tail sections themselves have quite a bit of flash around them, but the final piece, the rudder, did not fit really well at all. It took quite a lot of sanding back and widening of the two recesses just to get the thing to fit correctly, and then obviously it didn't sit really well, so I had to nibble little bits off it till I get it to fit just right, sanding the receiver just to make it fit in. So there is something to watch out for. It doesn't fit really well straight off the sprue. My next problem arose with this piece here, and this is not the kit's fault. This is entirely my fault. Now, through a little bit of lack of concentration, this is the central upper support for the top wing section, and I got it upside down. I just wasn't watching what I was doing, a schoolboy error, and what I had to do to correct it, you'll see later on, is I had to cut a new recess because I'd already glued the entire top wing assembly together. Just a moment's lack of thought caused this problem. So nothing to do with the kit. This is entirely human error, operator error, my fault completely. There I go, look, happily gluing it together, completely oblivious to the balls up that I'm making. Brilliant. Now these sections are more or less finished, another light coating of the matte black just to bring them together. Then I'm going to assemble the wings. So shortly after placing on the bottom support struts here is where I realised the mistake I've made. What you don't see in the video is the good hour of cutting, sanding, shaping, further cutting, measuring, and a fair bit of swearing and self-recrimination too. Measure twice, cut once, guys. Despite my major error, the model went together really well, and I think in this matte black it looks exceptionally cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give it the finishing coat, and then I'm going to give it some Vallejo matte varnish over the top before we apply the decals. The Vallejo matte varnish has been my go-to even before I got an airbrush. It goes to the airbrush really well, and the final coating you get is absolutely spectacular. I couldn't recommend the stuff enough. If you're looking for a good solid matte varnish, this is the one to go for. Especially if you're using an airbrush and you're relatively new to an airbrush like me. It doesn't need thinning down. It does travel through the airbrush quite slowly, but that just gives you more of a chance to get a more accurate covering. final parts going on are the engine and the cowling, the nose cowling and the propeller, the wheels, one or two little bits, the radiator on the side, before we go on to the final stage of sticking the decals on and giving those decals a little bit more of the matte varnish over the top. I've got to say, at this point of the build, I'm really pleased with how it looks. I'm quite excited to get it finished. It's a spectacular looking model, this one. Decals on, went on without a problem. I did use a little bit of Vallejo matte varnish just to tighten them up over the top. I've never tried the micro set or the micro sol or whatever it's called because I've not needed to yet. I just use a little bit of watered down matte varnish over the top, and that tends to tighten them down and make them really stick to the contours. In terms of the actual pattern for this model, there's not a lot of decals to go on it anyway, and I think that lack of decals makes it look less busy and therefore really brings out how good that black finish is. And there we have it, the finished model. Extremely happy with how it came out. I can't recommend this kit enough. It's been a challenging build, but only because of me, human error. The kit's fantastic. Please consider subscribing, leaving any comments or any likes. Check out the description for the links to the review of the £100 aircraft mystery box kit, and check out all the links for ways to support my channel. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.